and work it down.
Oh, twist it down this way?
Yeah, yeah, down the shaft. Oh man, we're gonna get banned on YouTube. We're gonna start off with making a list today. Looking for a marker. We got a lot of stuff that we can do, so I just want to make sure that we stay organized with it. Move through those items as efficiently as possible. But I don't know where a marker is. You know where a marker is? What we doing today, bitches?
Just this. Read it and weep, sister.
Hayden's amazing.
He's looking at me so weird.
All right, so we got a little list of some easy things that we need to take care of, just based on some of the parts that came in. So we got the water pump and the spacers themselves. We gotta see if we have any gaskets, because the water pump didn't come with gaskets for some reason. So either we'll have to go buy some, or Hayden might have some laying around. The crank pulley and balancer. I put the crank pulley in the freezer, so we're gonna try that later on. We might have to try something else if it doesn't wanna go in too easily, but we'll see how it just being in the freezer works for a while. Leave it in there for a couple hours and then try it later. The upper control arms, when we got them, we just got too anxious. We wanted to put them in right away. We didn't check to see if everything was tightened up, and it's not, so we gotta pull those out to actually tighten them up for, you know, final assembly, I guess. And then we also got the new springs for the front suspension. It came in with all the 4-link stuff. So I got another set of some slightly stiffer springs. They're 300s. The ones that are in there right now are 225s, and they're definitely too soft. We had the motor in there by itself, and we just sat on it, kind of simulating, what, like another, basically 350, 400 pounds or something like that. Because we're gonna have a lot of other stuff on there. The whole turbo setup, you know, manifolds, the radiator stuff, the intercooler stuff. There's a lot of other weight that we had to put on there, and it went way too low. So got a different spring, we'll see how that works out too. Oh, the axle stubs. So we brought some axles with us. I think we'll try to make just some temporary stubs to keep the freaking wheels from wobbling all over the place. But in the end, I think we're gonna have to take it to a machine shop and have them actually turn it down so that it's not like a rough, crappy cut that we make, so that it's at least hopefully try to get it to where it's not like unbalanced in some way. I don't know, that's something that we gotta figure out if that's gonna be an issue or not. And then, oh, Tanya went to go get breakfast. She went to Chick-fil-A. Oh, and she already said, what's for lunch? So I guess we're already thinking about what we're gonna, we eat a lot, but it takes too much time. So thank you, Tanya, for going and getting the food so that we can get organized and get ready to go here. So we'll do the water pump stuff right now because that's the easiest while we wait for that to freeze. As far as the fabrication stuff though, we wanna try to mess with the steering rack. So we'll go over more of what we're gonna do with that in a bit here, but let's get this easy stuff going. All right, so we put the water pump on real quick. I just wanted to show you how the spacers and everything work. All right, so we described this previously, but I just wanted to show you what we meant by it. So these are the spacers. So this is a car pump, and normally there's multiple types of spacing. Car spacing is a lot closer to the motor. Truck spacing is a lot further out. We want to maintain truck spacing on this. So since we're using a car pump, and keep in mind the only reason why we're using a car pump is because we wanted this to come forward instead of up. The truck pump has a tube that comes up out of this, and where our throttle body is going to sit right here, it was actually going to hit. So we couldn't use it even if we wanted it to. But the other reason actually is the hood line on this is very low, so we didn't want to come up and out anyway. It was fine in the truck because we don't have no hood, but for this, we wanted it to come straight forward. So the other benefit to these fittings is we get to put an AN like 90-degree fitting in there, like 1/8 inch to -3 AN. And then we're gonna put that -3 fitting on this line for the steam ports, and that's where it's gonna go. So said it a couple of times, but I just wanted to actually give a visual reference to that. So now all of our pulleys and everything you see line up with our truck spacing alternator bracket kit to the water pump. And then, like I said, later on we'll get that crank pulley once it's frozen for a while there. All right, so bad luck. We looked in all of the 4-link kit stuff, and it turns out the one thing that didn't come with the 4-link setup that we ordered from Quartermax was the front springs. They were on back order, so they're coming directly from the manufacturer. I don't know when the hell they're gonna show up. I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't tell me so that I could just, you know, cancel that portion of the order and order it from somebody else. But anyway, so we couldn't do the springs. We took all the suspension off and everything for nothing. We at least tightened up the bolts that hold together the upper control arms, so that's out of the way. We won't ever have to take that stuff off again. So I guess now that we got the water pump and the alternator and all that whole bracket assembly on, we want to really kind of complete that whole thing. So we're gonna put the crank pulley on here in a second.
Wipe it?
Yeah.
Oh, stinky.
We go.
Stinks.
Does it? Not at all.
I don't smell it either.
Maybe it's my hands. Oh, it's my hands.
So we gotta just set it
It
in
just
there?
keeps frosting back up, yeah.
Bolt.
It didn't go very far at all. Where's the bolt?
Right to your left.
Oh, it's underneath
we
your
put
knee.
it? Oh, there you go.
Sure. Try it. Oh, fuck.
Let's go easy with it, I guess. I think it's pulling it.
Can't really get easy.
I think that might be all it goes.
Ain't moving no more.
That might be all it goes. Because it looks like it might be in line with this already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that might be as far as it goes. It's actually pretty easy to go on.
Well, don't do it that way.
Yeah, it didn't work the greatest.
We thought it was gonna get colder than that. Yeah.
Dude, holy, that's so little.
I know. Tiny little sucker.
Let's put that thing on the supercharger on the Falcon.
There you go. How much boost would that make?
Probably a lot.
All of it?
It's like a 1-inch pulley. I think it's got like a 3-inch pulley on it.
Wait, really? I thought it was a...
It's either a 3 or a 2. Looks like a 3.
Oh, am I supposed to use something? You think I might hurt this if I impact it?
Nah. Send it.
Oh.
Well, you gotta hold it.
No. I mean...
You get
That's
it?
the whole point of an impact.
I mean, you gotta somewhat hold it. It's just so funny how little that thing is.
Tiny. Oh, this hurts my thumb so bad. All the voltages.
Sure. Maxed. Too loose.
All right, well, I need a shorter belt now. Thanks, Jigs, or Summit, whatever. So they gave this belt. I don't think this was even gonna work before we swapped these pulleys out, but this belt size and everything that they recommended was for this kit, this pulley, but a normal size crank pulley and normal tensioner.
Which is a big difference.
Yeah,
Stock crank pulley's pretty big.
Yeah, that stock one's a decent amount bigger than this. And we had to go smaller with this pulley as well to compensate for the amount that this was spinning, so yeah, makes sense. The belt is now too long, so we'll have to grab a shorter one. But at least everything is on there. At some point we'll have to check the torque on that crank pulley. It's supposed to be like 240 foot-pounds. I think this thing probably only does about, I don't know, maybe 120 or something like that, so at some point, like once we get the drivetrain in there and everything, we could really crank the shit out of it. Right? This will work for now. Hayden's measuring we're trying to figure out the steering rack location right now. So we added a piece of tube across the bottom of the engine cradle that we did, where the motor mounts are actually connected to. put a piece of tube across the bottom of it so that we had more to actually make brackets for the steering rack. Because if you look at the steering rack, the tabs are on the bottom side of it. And so we didn't want to have to make brackets that went like all the way up to the original piece. So we put another piece of tube on there underneath, welded that to it. And then we're going to weld the rack mounts to that. All right, so while Hayden is hammering away at the steering stuff, I wanted to get one thing out of the way. Now, this isn't final. We're probably gonna have a machine shop cut these down, so that'll be a little bit cleaner, but I just wanted to show you guys what we're doing as a general idea. So the wheel bearings in here actually do need to be held in, and they're normally held in by the axle, which comes through the back here, and that nut holds it in, sandwiches everything together. So what we're doing is we're just taking the outer of the axle.
Taking it apart.
And work it down.
Twist it down this way?
Yeah, down the shaft. Oh man, we're gonna get banned on YouTube. Finally got it out. I think we're gonna make something a lot nicer, clean all that stuff out, maybe take the bearing stuff and everything out of there, weld a cap on it or something. I don't know. I gotta figure out what we're actually gonna do with these, but this gives you the basic idea. All we're using is the outer part of the axle to hold that bearing in. So these are going to stay in the hub back here. Oh, I can't show that to you without screwing it up. Give me 1 second. So yeah, basically those little stubs are just gonna hang out back there. They're gonna continue to be out. Since these axles are normally used for ABS, it has this ring here. It has a bunch of points on it that we can put a ABS sensor on this, feed that into the computer, and that gives us front wheel speed. All right, so the rear axle that we have going in this has a speed sensor already in it. So like the Mustang rear end that we used in the truck, it doesn't have a speed sensor, and so we have to use like an aftermarket collar, like on the drive shaft or something like that to do speed sensor, which we haven't done yet. Eventually we will do. But in this car, it's way easier because we have the rear end that is already gonna have a speed sensor. We wire that into the ECU. And then this front one, as you saw on that axle, we can use that as the data points for just a normal ABS sensor, which is essentially just a Hall effect sensor that we wire into the ECU. That's our front wheel speed. So we can do a lot of things with that. We can either base our power control on front wheel speed only, which is a pretty good means of power control. That way, if you're spinning, it's not gonna think that you're increasing in speed and just add more power. If you do it by vehicle speed, which is your non-drive wheel speed, it's a lot better because you see how fast the car is actually going. If you're spinning, the car's not going to be moving that much faster. You actually get a decrease in the rate at which you're increasing in speed. So you'll see a plateau in your speed, and you know next time, okay, I was spinning there, I got to take a little bit out or whatever. The best case scenario that we can use that for is in an advanced table, we can compare the two speed readings, and we can make changes based on the difference of those two. So if you start doing a burnout right off the line, the difference between those two signals is going to be huge. So the bigger the signal difference, the more power you can take out. So you can have like a timing retard or something come into play when those two values start getting too high. So if they're way apart, chop a bunch of timing. If they're only a little bit apart, you can only chop a little bit of timing. So that way you go for a desired slip ratio. That's what you're creating basically. With the front wheel speed and the rear wheel speed being compared to each other, you're creating a slip ratio. And you can make a power change based on that. That's a basic form of traction control. So if we can make it work, there's still some questions about whether the Terminator X will support what we want to do. We know the HP supports what we want to do. Got to make sure. There's a couple of more things. We'll start playing around with that hopefully this week. So we'll see. But just wanted to give you guys an idea of what we're planning on doing with the front and how that's going to benefit us with the ABS rings. All right, while we were getting the axle stuff in, Hayden was trying to figure out the whole steering rack mounting situation. He made some brackets, he boxed in some stuff, made some gussets. It's actually a pretty beefy setup. We also added some structure to the bottom of the cradle because we did have to notch the top of it to clear the pan. That was just a mess up on our part. So he's welding that up right now. As soon as he's done with that, we should be able to actually mount the rack, and then we get an idea of what rod ends we actually need to connect to the hubs, or the knuckles. Okay, so there was a bit of time in between. We were doing a lot of like thinking and trying to figure out what we were going to do with the steering situation. So I didn't really shoot any of that, but Hayden did finish up welding the whole subframe, all the stuff that we added to it, and got the steering rack actually mounted. So I'll show you that right now.
You should Photoshop them in there.
That's what I was saying. It might be funny.
All right, so let's see. I'll try to get you. I should have taken video of this while it was out, but we'll see if we can get a good view of it. Okay, well, so anyway, you see the steering rack in all its glory. It is going to be the lowest point, but even still, I think we're going to be able to get it. It's going to be about 3 inches off the ground, so at real ride height, at weight and everything. So yeah, it should be good. Looks really low, but I mean, it's not. My truck oil pan is pretty freaking low, and it doesn't cause any issues. Okay, so you can see what we did in here. So we put a bar across the bottom of the existing subframe, and then welded some gussets up to the top just to give some structure back because we did have to notch. And then he basically just boxed in some extensions from that subframe, and that's what we put the bolts through. We got the bushings in there and everything. So, all right, so we'll go more into depth on the parts that we actually are going to get to make the upward offset and the horizontal offset work with the, as far as the steering rack as compared to where it actually has to attach to the knuckles. We'll go more into that later when we actually have the parts. We're going to get some this week, and we'll explain everything once we have it all. It's kind of hard to explain in words, so better to be able to visually show it to you. Hopefully Hayden works on the Falcon, figures it out this week. That would be nice, and we can get that thing on the dyno, get it finished up. What do you think?
I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, I feel like it's pretty strong.
Looks like a professional did it.
Little do they know.
It was Hayden.
Yeah, first time ever.
No, it did. It turned out really good. Like I said, we'll go more into depth on the steering stuff when we get all those parts, but I think it's going to work out really good. And yeah, we got a bunch of little things done with the parts that came in, and the steering rack was a big one. I mean, can't really overstate it. That was one of the things that we were really worried about. Like, we weren't really sure how it was going to work out and everything, and the fact that he got the subframe and everything modified to support the steering rack itself, and we have a good idea on how to do the steering linkages and everything. I don't know, that's motivating. So we gotta.
It went that well.
I'm not surprised. I knew it would go well.
You did.
No, I didn't. I was kind of worried about it.
I think this will pinch my ass.
Well, neither of us had ever done it. Like in the truck, I didn't have to do anything with the steering. So we got a plan of attack for some of the stuff that we're gonna do next week, and more parts will come in. So we'll just keep chipping away at the front stuff. We did take a bunch of measurements for like radiator and intercooler stuff. We're gonna talk to Justin about getting the cores that we want for radiator, maybe intercooler. We'll talk about that, and hopefully start getting that stuff in there too. But I guess that's it for now. Yeah, join us on the live stream tomorrow night, usually around 8:30, somewhere around there. And yeah, we'll talk more about what we got going on. But like, subscribe, and share, do all that good stuff. Hit the little bell for notifications so you can see when we do go live or post up new videos. And I don't know, hopefully we'll be doing a little bit of something on the Falcon as well soon. See if we can get that figured out.
Maybe we'll do a burnout.
Maybe we'll do a burnout. Basically, if any car runs, we're gonna do a burnout. So hopefully we can get that thing back to where it's running good.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll see you next time.
Bye.